Can you even game in $400? That is the question I'll be answering today, and let me tell you, you can't just game in $400, you can game comfortably at 1080p. But before I give you suggestion on what parts to choose to build a $400 gaming machine, I have a few things to say. Firstly, as you can tell by the title, I'll be talking about two other prices as well other than US dollars, which is Indian rupees and Bangladeshi taka, since I am from Bangladesh and my channel has viewers from India and surrounding regions. Plus, YouTube is an international platform and I believe it is a good idea to help anyone who's watching from anywhere. Keeping that in mind, I did not just make a setup and converted the price from one currency to another. That wouldn't be helpful. So I went ahead and checked and researched the local price of each item. That being said, the price difference is huge globally, so depending on where you're from and when you're watching this video, you may get the exact same parts at much cheaper price. Not only that, different websites and different retailers charge varying prices. So be sure to bargain if you're buying from a retail shop or check for sale or discounts when you're purchasing online. However, I'll be making an update to this video every quarter of the year, meaning every 4 months, so be sure to subscribe to my channel to not miss those videos. So first up is our processor, and I'm going with an Intel Pentium G4560. Now this is a Skylake processor mainly designed for home and office use and not really meant for gaming, but that being said, the difference in price between a Core i3 and the G4560 is huge, but the performance, the G4560 performs close to a Core i3 6100 6th gen CPU. Therefore, I have decided to save the extra $50 and go with the Intel Pentium G4560. Saving money now means in future you can save up for a Core i5 and just swap the CPUs instead of paying for a Core i3 right now and having to use it for a year or so. So you can get the G4560 at $57, which is around Taka 4900 in my country and rupees 4800 in India. Although the G4560 is not that great of a CPU compared to a Core i5, but then again we are balling in a budget here and the G4560 is actually not that bad of a processor, with dual cores and dual threads running at 3.3 GHz. Most games have a good balance of CPU and GPU stress, although some games require more CPU horsepower than GPU. Getting a Core i3 at almost double the price wouldn't have made much sense either. So at $400, it's worthwhile to stick to the highest end Pentium CPU here. However, if you're watching this video from the States, you should probably find the G4560, which is the latest 7th gen processor. It will cost you more at $64, but it's worth it since it has a higher clock speed of 3.5 GHz and also 4 threads instead of 2 threads of the G4560. Even though games don't take benefit of hyperthreading that much, but you'll find the CPU perform much better than the G4560 in most tasks, since it is of course the successor of the G4560. I could not find the price in rupees or taka since I'm guessing at the time I'm making this video it's not available in my country or at India. So if you find the G4560 in your country, do go for that instead of the G4560. Moving on, we have our motherboard, the Asus H110M-K. You can go with a Gigabyte or MSI's H110, but it depends on you, since this is a gaming build and having a different brand of motherboard with the same chipset won't give you a much performance either in games, so I've stuck with the Asus one for two reasons. One of them being I found the pricing in all three currencies, dollars, taka and rupee. So this is not a converted price. This is the price stated in each region's respective e-commerce websites during the time I was making this video. So if you're watching from the future, be sure to get updated with the price and bargain with local retailers for sure for a good deal. The second reason being, in my experience, Asus motherboards have served me well and the UEFI BIOS of Asus motherboards is also good. So there is not much to say about this motherboard except that it's a DDR4 supported motherboard with a clock speed of 2133 MHz. You can't really expect to overclock on this motherboard or even tweak it, but it supports any LGA1151 CPU, so you can even upgrade it to the Intel Core i5 7600 or 7500 Kaby Lake or even the Core i7. But let's not talk about that since this is a $400 build. We will be sticking to the G4560 and the H110. So now let's talk about memory, and I've gone with a 8GB DDR4 2133 MHz memory, and instead of 2 sticks of 4GB RAM, I've gone for a single stick of 8GB. Where I am from, 2GB of RAM would cost me more than a single stick of 8GB, but also having a single stick of 8GB RAM means later on you can slap in another 8GB and you'll end up with 16GB of RAM. In my local market, the Avexir 8GB DDR4 is the cheapest, coming in at Taka 3600, but for those you're watching from abroad, you can go with the Corsair Value series of RAM, which would cost you around $50 as of February 2017. In India, the same RAM stick is priced around 4300. Again, be sure to get updated with the price and get a good deal from your local retailer. You can go with a DDR4 RAM of any brand as you may wish, but it wouldn't matter so much. But be sure to buy DDR4 RAM because DDR3 is not supported on this motherboard, so keep that in mind. Now for storage, I've gone with a 240GB SSD. There is no physical hard drive in this $400 build. Since this is a gaming oriented build, an SSD will help us get lower loading time. And even though this is arguable, I personally believe SSD helps frame rate to some extent. Although feel free to disagree to this point, I went with the 240GB one so that we have dedicated 30 to 40GB for Windows and having 180 to 190GB for your games. Physical hard drives are cheap too nowadays, so you can go for a 1TB one if you want, but don't get an hard disk and miss the SSD because it's simply not worth it. And also here I have recommended two different brands. Locally I found the PNY CS1311 to be a good deal at Taka 6500. But if you're watching from US or India or any other country, you may also consider SanDisk Plus at $74 or 5800 rupees. Be sure to check your local computer store to see what deal they have on a 240GB SSD. Like I said, the price varies from region to region. But locally I couldn't find a SanDisk seller. Now on paper, the SanDisk states to have 350 megabytes per second of sequential write speed and read speed of 550 megabytes. And the PNY has advertised their 240GB SSD to have 520 megabytes of sequential write speed and read speed of 550 megabytes as well. But in real life situation, you will find either of the SSDs to be very good since they are of reputed brands. And SSDs don't really perform to their advertised speeds as well, but why that happens is video for another day. But an SSD is worth getting, that's for sure. The moment you have been waiting for, the graphics card. I have gone with the Zotac Nvidia GTX 550 2GB edition. Now AMD fans, don't get disheartened, I am not a Nvidia or AMD fanboy. I have used both brands in the past. But around $100, the GTX 550 beats the latest RX 460 in many games at 1080p. But AMD's RX 460 sometimes perform better than the GTX 550 in DX12. That being said, in average, the GTX 550 performs better. That's why I've gone with this card. And the Zotac version of this card seemed to be the cheapest at the time I'm making this video, but for some extra few bucks, you can go with the brand of your choice. But in my country and on Amazon, the Zotac was priced around $100 or 10,500 Taka, and in India you can get it for around 10,000 rupees or lower. So like I've mentioned before, price varies a lot. Do check your local retailer for discounts and pricing. So the Zotac Nvidia GeForce GTX 1050 is a solid card for 1080p gaming. It has a 1455 MHz of boost clock and 7000 MHz of memory clock. It's a 128-bit card with 640 CUDA cores, and if you can afford something more expensive like a GTX 1050 Ti 4GB edition, do go for that as well. Now for the power supply, a 350 watt will be adequate since this build won't need more than 240 watts. PC components, especially the latest generation ones, seems to put more performance out for lower power requirements. Therefore, we don't need a beefy PSU, but if you want to be more future-proof and want expandability, then you can opt for a Corsair VS450, which is of course a 450 watt power supply. But for this build, the Antec Basiq 350 watt will do just fine. As the name suggests, it's a pretty basic thing and there's not much to say about it. It's a 350 watt power supply with non-modular cables, so have fun sorting out the cables. But if you have a good enough case, it will be a breeze. So we come to our next component, which is the case itself, and I have chosen the Antec GX200. In my country, I found it at a good price of only Taka 3500, which is around $45. And in this price range, I'm surprised it even has a side window. In India, the same case is priced around 3500 rupees, but I'm sure it can be found much cheaper at a local retail store. As you can see, I have also included the BitFenix Neos. This is because the Antec GX200 is actually not officially available in the US as far as I'm guessing, because I couldn't find a US dollar pricing. I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but at the price range of $45, the BitFenix Neos is similarly priced to the GX200 but looks much better in my opinion. But at $30 to $40, you can't go wrong with a case, so just choose anyone as long as it has good reviews online. Get a used case if you want and save some further cash, because it doesn't really affect the PC's performance. As long as it's well ventilated and allows proper cooling, you should be good to go. So that's it guys, we have the complete build. Let's recap our setup. For the CPU, we have the Intel Pentium G4400 or G4560. For the motherboard, we have the Asus H110M-K. For the RAM, we are going with 8GB DDR4 single stick. For storage, we have a 240GB SSD, and for graphics, we have chosen Zotac GTX 1050. Powering the entire system will be a 350W power supply by Antec, and the PC chassis will be an Antec GX200 or BitFenix Neos. I hope I've been able to help you out. I did invest a lot of time making and researching this video, and I had fun doing it. I hope you liked it. So do share your thoughts in the comment section. Go crazy, share your negative or positive review, whatever you want. I'm interested to know each of your comments, and if you have any question, do ask that. Do give this video a like or even a dislike, and share the video with a friend who might find this interesting. If you guys want, I'll manage a rig of this exact same specification and benchmark it. So let me know if you want to see that. So I'll catch you soon in my next video.